Now this is dry, and we want to mount this onto the streamer. I didn't trim this yet. We'll trim this after we get done. This requires some very, very steady hands to make sure that you do this. This tape is very, very sticky, and once you stick it down, it's almost impossible to tear it up or get it up without tearing the streamer, which is good. It bonds really, really tight, but you got to make sure you're very, very well aligned as you put everything together. Okay, so we're going to work with this in terms of millimeters simply because it's easier to work with these smaller dimensions. It's about 48 millimeters. So we want to mark the center of this at 24 millimeters. Right about there. This will help us align the center. Now what we're going to do is put this here, and then put 2 straps of tape over and fold them over. Now it's important to get these dimensioned correctly and to align them correctly and to do this in exactly the right order. Otherwise it's just simply going to be a mess if you don't get it to hold correctly. So if we look at this and say, okay, if we mount this, put this here, you can see that the distance that we need is about 20, well, let's just call it 20 millimeters. That'll give us a little bit of breathing space on either side. Okay, so we need something that's 2 inches long and 20 millimeters wide. So this material is approximately 2 inches, almost 2 inches. So this gives us the 2 inches. Now this just needs to be 20 millimeters. So what I like to do is I just drop this down on the desk. And I'm not rubbing it down. If you do that, it's just going to make the glue really, really hard to get off. So let's go ahead. I'm going to cut the rough edge off first, because I think that's going to just make it hard to align. So we got all these little pieces. You got to make sure you get rid of these pieces because I had one streamer where a little tiny piece got stuck in the streamer and the streamer didn't unwind because a little piece of flake of tape like that got stuck. Okay, so this is about 2 inches that we're looking at. And I want to mark this at 1 inch, approximately halfway. Again, it's not exactly 2 inches, it's 1 7/8. So we need to mark this at about 1, just a little bit before 1. It doesn't have to be exact, it's just going to help us line this up. So you can see this is going to be the part that sticks on the front, and this rolls over onto the part that's on the back. So we want this to, again, be 20 millimeters. If we look at this, 20 millimeters would be right about there. This is about 4 millimeters of play. So we're going to mark this at 20, right there. Mark this at 20, right there. I'll put a line across. It doesn't look like I marked that correctly. Let's take a look again. That's about 20, okay. That's about 22, okay, so that's why it's off a little bit. So put that spot there, okay. So what I'm going to do is cut this, or mark this. Get a nice wide line. But what I'm going to do is cut it in the middle of the line. By cutting it in the middle of the line, it leaves a nice black line along the edge, which helps us line this up. So we want to cut this right here. Remove the part we don't need. And again, I'm using just the back end of the knife to lift this up, pulling this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stick this back on the blade. Now this gives us a handle to help us line things up. And if you use your fingers too much, you're going to get your finger stuck to it, and it's going to be putting grease on it, and that's going to make it very, very difficult to stick it down. So this is nice and sticky. This will help us lay it down. But I'm going to show you that there's another little problem. I don't know if I can do it here, but okay. This metal handle helps us relieve the problem of static electricity. What I found is when you're trying to lay this down, the static electricity between this and this will make the plastic streamer jump up in the air and stick at a random place on the tape. Again, I found that this metal handle of the blade, lowering it this way, it's not good. Oops, there it goes. it's not going, there you see it's pulling it, whoop, there, pulled it right up, and let me pull that off before it gets stuck. So you can see static electricity is going to make this difficult to do. What I found, and you can see I warped the streamer a little bit simply because this got stuck in the wrong place. So this is very, very sticky tape, very good stuff, but you've got to make sure you get that stuck in the right place. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to place this streamer right here, and lower this down using the dotted line, and also use actually I'm going to reverse this. I'm going to put it this way. This black line, we want to line it up with the edge of our streamer. And I know it's probably hard to see. So we want to keep the black dot lined up on the line. We keep the black line on top lined up, and line up the dotted line, and just keep this all in line and drop it down like this. Okay. Now, we don't want to wrap it around the back right away, because if you do that, it's going to twist a little bit. So let's just leave this as is. That's good. We're just going to lightly hold that down to help it hold it so we can do the other side. So therefore, if you wrap this around, this side is going to wrinkle a little bit, and that's going to be really hard to stick it down. Now, it's really, really, really important to rub this down hard with like a pen cap. Now, I noticed that when I do this, the glue squishes into the mylar. And when it does that, it makes an incredibly tight bond, such that you cannot remove this tape now without tearing the streamer itself. So again, a very, very tight bond that we get out of this. And look, I just want to be careful if this is moving around a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to reposition this a little bit because it shifted a little bit as I did this. Okay. Oh! Fell out. That's okay. It's not that important. Position this again. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to cut another piece now. The same thing. This is approximately a 2-inch wide tape. I'm going to first cut off the rough edge. And we want this to be 20 millimeters. So there's two things we want to do. We want to mark off the 1-inch point, which is going to be the approximate center. Again, it's very approximate. Again, not that critical, but we need something to help us line this up. And this has to be 20 millimeters down. Right there. And 20 millimeters over here. There. Go ahead and make a line. Now we're going to cut that on the line to help give us an alignment line. I'm going to lift this up. Just lifting my pad up. Again, I want to have this, try to unroll this a little bit. Without touching it. Okay, a little bit better. Now I want to stick this on this side, and again, the dotted line helps us line up the toothpick. The solid line allows us to line up. And we go like that. So now we just flip this over. And what I do is I try to line up this line with the edge. You don't want it over the edge because now you've got a little sticky edge that's going to catch the rest of it. And again, what's nice about keeping these ends of the toothpick on here gives us something to hold on to. So I'm just going to fold this over like that. Fold this one over as well. And there we go. We have this mount. Look at that. I know this might sound like it's extremely simple, but it does hold very, very, very well. So again, we got to rub this down. The rubbing action somehow makes the glue almost like dissolve into the mylar, and it gives it an incredibly tough bond. Okay, now we don't want to make these any longer. Now notice this is about an inch here and about an inch here. It's off by about maybe an eighth. But when we wrap this around, we don't want this going all the way around the streamer, because this tape, it does not stretch. So what's going to happen is just going to wrap around the streamer and stay there. So we want to make sure that this does not wrap all the way around the streamer when it's done. So that's why this is only 1 inch here and 1 inch here. And we can then wrap up the streamer, and the streamer is going to have a little bit of a space around it like this. So again, there's a lot of little details here. Let me go ahead and cut that off. And my cutter, let's see where I put the my cutter here. It's somewhere. Oh, we'll just use the scissors. It's not that difficult. Just want to go ahead and we just want to cut this off now. And there's a little nick out of the streamer. Just want to trim that. Okay. And right here as well. There we go. Now we have an extremely tough connection on this streamer. And we got this knot which has this really, really solid glue into the toothpick. So what's really important again is if you pull on this, and you see I'm pulling on it pretty hard, it's going to distribute the force equally across the front. And that's very, very important so you don't get any zippering. There's no